What's up YouTube? I'm David Warren and welcome back to this week's video. Today we're going to talk about preparing for CRNA school clinical rotations. If you're new here, consider subscribing. My channel is all about being a nurse practitioner and being a CRNA student. Currently, I am a second year SRNA, so student registered nurse anesthetist, and I am finishing CRNA school next year. Next year will be my third year. I'll be a senior SRNA, and I'll graduate next December with my doctorate of nurse anesthesia practice. I can't wait for that, but today I want to talk to you about what CRNA school clinicals are like, how I'm preparing for that, and kind of what the next step is. And the first thing I want to talk to you about is really the two different types of CRNA programs. So if you're unfamiliar with what a CRNA is a certified registered nurse anesthetist or a certified registered nurse anesthesiologist. And we are nurses, critical care nurses, who are trained to provide anesthesia across the lifespan. We're trained in all types of anesthesia across the lifespan. And we're trained in anatomy, physiology, pharmacology, anesthetic management, and research statistics, and then the business side of anesthesia as well. So that's kind of in a nutshell what a CRNA is. If you're unfamiliar with that, do a quick Google search. I'm sure you can find some stuff about what a CRNA is, but that's a little bit about what CRNAs are. Again, this isn't really the video to explain what a CRNA is, but I feel like I should give that a little preface as to what a CRNA is before we really delve into the subject for today. So there are two types of CRNA programs. All CRNA programs are brick and mortar. They require you to be on campus, and they are all doctoral programs, and everybody who graduates, I think by the year 2025, will have a doctoral degree. And so there are two types of programs within that specialty though. There's what's called a front-loaded program and then an integrated program. So I'm in a front-loaded program. A front-loaded program means that all of your didactic content is presented up front. So as I said earlier, I'm a second year SRNA, so all of my didactic content has been presented over the past 12 months into the next 3 months. So 15 months here in Central California learning all of the didactics of anesthesia. That includes physiology, pharmacology. We've had 3 quarters of pharmacology, learning anesthesia pharmacology, critical care pharmacology, and then our last pharmacology course really dealt with how does patients that take everyday medicines, how do their everyday medicines interact with our anesthetics? And so knowing that is super helpful when providing anesthesia care as well. And then we also take classes in anesthesia management, so really across the lifespan, neonates, pediatrics, adults, and geriatrics, and then all subspecialties and specialties of anesthesia care. So really cardiovascular anesthesia, thoracic anesthesia, general anesthesia, like when we're talking about like general surgery in the abdomen, orthopedic anesthesia, neurocranial anesthesia, regional anesthesia, doing nerve blocks, and then we touch a little bit on outpatient pain management. However, after you are already a CRNA, you can go back and get a fellowship certification as a non-surgical pain management specialist, and that's really where you just do interventional pain management. And so that's kind of what CRNA education looks like. Again, I'm in the front-loaded program, meaning that all of the didactic components are presented up front. So really starting from day 1 until 15 months in, we learn everything you need to know textbook-wise on how to be a CRNA. And then we start clinical rotations after that for the remainder of the second year. So really, I guess, 9 months of the second year and then 12 months of the third year are spent in clinical rotation. So we really have almost 2 years of clinical rotations after we finish the didactic component. Again, there's no clinical rotations up front in the front-loaded program. And then there's the integrated program. So the integrated program is much what it sounds like. It's probably like most nursing schools in the fact that you learn some didactic content and then you start clinical almost immediately. And then you learn some more didactic content and you do some more clinical. And so the didactic and the clinical portion are really integrated together. And there are really good reasons and bad reasons why you would choose or not choose one or the other. I personally prefer the integrated program so that by the time you get to clinical or by the time I get to clinical, I theoretically have learned what I need to know to be a CRNA in the textbook sense. Meaning that if I go to clinical and there's a patient presented to me that I'm like managing that day, I theoretically should have had coverage on whatever pathology that is and whatever anesthesia type that is at some point during my program. Again, it's probably not going to be like fresh all the time, but it's something that I can go back to and refresh on and be like, okay, yeah, I know what that is. I remember learning about that. Whereas if you're in an integrated program, and again, this is not a knock on integrated programs. I think they're fine. It's a good choice to make. But for me, it wasn't the right choice for me personally. Because in an integrated program, if let's say you go to clinical, your first few months, and you have like an obstetric patient and you just haven't learned about obstetrics yet in anesthesia school, you kind of have to watch and hang out or learn a little bit on the job. Whereas if you've been in a front-loaded program, you know theoretically what you should be doing because you've been in that integrated or that front-loaded program where you've learned all the didactic content up front. So those are a little bit about the types of programs. Again, I am finishing up didactic right now in my last quarter, my 15th month, and I will be starting clinical in April. And so I'm going to be going to Las Vegas, Nevada for my first clinical rotation. So I'm in Central California at CRNA school, and the main places that we rotate at this program are California, Texas, and Arizona. Those are the main areas, and the program that I'm in is really cool because it puts a very high emphasis on independent CRNA practice. And so the vast majority of the sites that I rotate through will be independent CRNA practice sites, which is really cool because that's what I ultimately want to do. I want to practice independently, and I want to be somewhere that allows me to do that. And this is kind of a side note, but if you are in CRNA programs on the East Coast, a lot of those programs are in what we call anesthesia care team or medical direction sites, meaning that you practice under the supervision of a physician. And there's certainly nothing wrong with that if that's what you want to do. For me, I would prefer to practice independently, and I want to be trained to be able to do that. If for some reason I want to work in a medical direction or an anesthesia care team model site, I can do that. But if I want to work independently, I can also do that. Excuse me, I just had like something catching my throat. So those are the kind of different models of clinical rotations. And again, I'm going to Las Vegas, Nevada. That's my first site. I'm going to be doing 12 weeks there. And then after that, I will go somewhere else for 12 weeks. And basically, I'm going to be doing 12-week stints from all of this year through next year. So I'll do 4 12-week stints next year. I'll do 3 12-week stints this year, and then I'll be finished with my CRNA clinical rotations. So theoretically, I could end up somewhere different during each of those 12-week segments. I could potentially stay at that location if I like it and if they like me, but we'll see how that goes. So it's going to be at a community hospital, and my schedule is probably going to be from like 6 a.m. till about 3 or 4 p.m. And Monday through Friday, I have the weekends off, and I've been told that I could have some Fridays off. So we'll see how that works out. Again, I don't have my official schedule yet, but one of the upperclassmen at my program was at this clinical site and kind of gave me the lowdown on what to expect. He said all the CRNAs and all the anesthesiologists are super nice, very welcoming. It's a great place to start your first rotation. And I'm super excited to get there. I can't wait to get to the clinical setting to see what it's going to be all about. And that kind of leads me into my next point, and that is, how am I preparing for CRNA school clinical? And that's a really good question because in the program that I'm in, this front-loaded program, we have to take what's called the C exam. It's SEE, self-evaluation. So we have to take the C exam, which is administered by the NB-CRNA, the National Board of Certification and Recertification for Nurse Anesthetists. That's our national certification board. And we take this self-evaluation exam to really gauge where we are in our learning experience. And so we have to pass the C exam to be able to proceed on to clinical. So I feel like this quarter in my anesthesia program, it's been so focused on reviewing and trying to prepare for that C exam. And there are a couple of different review softwares that we use in my program, board review softwares, to help us prepare for those standardized type exams. So a lot of my focus now is studying for the C exam, which is inadvertently preparing me for clinical because again, my program's front-loaded, so it's been like a year ago that I did some of these basic airway type things or basic pharmacology, learning about propofol and etomidate and dexmedetomidine and the volatile agents. So it's been a while. So I'm going back and inadvertently studying for the C exam is helping me prepare for clinical because I'm going over the pharmacology. I'm going over what we learned a year ago, the actual process of induction and intubation and managing the patient through the maintenance phase, and then emerging the patient and extubating the patient. So I'm reviewing all of that. Is really helping me study for that C exam, and then also helping me inadvertently prepare for clinical as well. So we're also this quarter in a simulation lab on campus, and so we meet once a week in our simulation lab to go over actual anesthesia cases, to practice inductions, to practice maintenance phase, emergence, extubation, and to manage emergencies that evolve within that time period. So that's also how our class, me for sure, is preparing for clinical, is by, again, reviewing those board review software programs that really gear towards board preparation, passing the C exam, reviewing pharmacology, and then learning how to do the hands-on in the simulation lab. And of course, the simulation lab is really not indicative of like real life practice, but it gives you some semblance of what you will be doing. Again, like intubating a mannequin is not the same. I've intubated before, so intubating a mannequin, I can say for sure, is not the same as intubating a human. However, it's good to go through the motions to be able to know like how to work the anesthesia machine, etc. So those are some other things that I'm brushing up on apart from our board review preparation for the C exam. I'm also reviewing the anesthesia machine. We went over the anesthesia machine last year in our didactic components, but I'm really brushing up on that because you literally use the anesthesia machine every single day. And so knowing the odds and ends of the anesthesia machine is helpful, not only for the C exam, but also for preparing for clinical. So those are a few of the ways that I'm preparing for clinical. As far as like getting all your cases in, you'll hear CRNAs or SRNAs talk about getting their cases in. And CRNA school clinicals are a little bit different than like nurse practitioner clinicals. So it's not really about the number of hours that you are doing clinical. It's more about the number of cases that you're getting. So we're not shooting for like a certain number of hours to be like, okay, I've met the 500-hour requirement. It's, by the way, it's way more than that. Or I've met this certain number of requirement, but it's more of how many certain cases did you get? How many hearts did you get? I can't remember what the correct number is that we have to get, or how many intubations did you get, or how many LMA placements, or how many open bellies or neurocranial cases. So those different cases are what really adds up to make sure that we meet the mark to graduate from our program. And so the program that I'm in has people exceed their case numbers by hundreds, if not thousands. And so it's very common to get way over the caseload that you need to actually graduate from the program. And so we use a software called Typhon to like log and track our cases. And I actually use that software in nurse practitioner school to log my clinical cases there. So very familiar with Typhon. It's a headache, but it's kind of a necessary evil, I suppose. And you see other SRNAs and NP students, you probably know what Typhon is because I feel like everybody probably uses that. So I'm starting in April. I'll be in Las Vegas for 12 weeks at a community hospital doing all types of anesthesia. I'm super excited about it. I really can't wait to get to the clinical setting. It's been, I feel like over the past year has just been, it's so long, like trying to go through the motions every day of studying, being behind a computer screen. It's exhausting, and I can't wait to get to the clinical setting. I do plan to do more videos on what the clinical setting is like. Again, this is kind of how I'm preparing for the clinical setting, what steps I'm taking to kind of get there. Once I'm there, I can certainly share with you guys what that's like and what my day in and day out routine is. But for now, that's how I'm preparing for CRNA school clinicals. If you're an SRNA, comment below. Let me know what your preparation techniques were. If you have any advice for other future SRNAs, comment below and let them know as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.